Let's jump straight in and see how quickly we can get this Moria Goblin on the tabletop. Start the clock. So starting with a black primer, the first step will be to use Mechanicus Standard Grey, and with a small dry brush, do a heavy dry brush over the entire mini so that we're left with the black only in the recesses. This will help with the coverage of the paints and will speed up the entire paint job. The next step is to use Leadbelcher and a really small dry brush to do a light dry brush on all of the metal parts, just picking out the raised details and edges. This means that they'll read as metal but remain dark. Now to add some colour, we'll be using Khorne Red, which is probably my favourite Citadel paint. It has great coverage, so thin it slightly with water, and then being as accurate as you can, paint all of the cloth on the mini, so the sleeves and the skirt. Don't worry about painting under the model, as you'll never see it, so you'll be wasting time. Now for the skin, I'll be using Orruk Flesh, as I've been doing some experimenting, and with this method it ends up pretty close to the colour you see on screen in the movies. Again, thin it down a little bit with water, just enough to make it flow nicely, to give a smooth coverage. Paint the face, ears, arms, the fingers if they're visible, and the parts of the legs that you can easily see. Once you've done that, using Rhinox Hide, we're just going to paint any wooden and leather parts. So on this goblin, it's the shaft of the spear and the straps that hold the armour on. Then, using Balor Brown, we're going to paint the eyes. If you started with the face, then it should be dry enough to paint straight away. If you're not sure, then leave it a minute. Make sure you use a brush with a good tip, as the eyes on these goblins are pretty small. Now, using a bit of magic in the form of Nuln Oil, we can reinforce the recesses and add some more contrast to the mini. Give it a nice coat all over, being sure not to let it pull. If you're batch painting your goblins, then by the time you have done your last mini, the first one should be dry. But in this case, I'm going to maximise my time by starting the base while I wait for the Nuln Oil to dry. And for that, I'm going to use Astro Granite and give it a nice covering, being careful not to cover the feet of the goblin. Then I'll put it aside for a minute or two, just to be absolutely sure that the Nuln Oil on the face has dried. Then, using Rhinox Hide and a brush with a really good tip, I'm just going to do a vertical line down the centre of each eye. Thin it slightly and make sure you don't have too much on your brush. I tested this on my nail before touching the mini. If you're not confident, then leave this step. Finally, we just need to paint the rim using Mechanicus Standard Grey. You'll need to do a couple of coats to get a smooth finish. And with that, our goblin is complete and ready for battle. Stop the clock. And that's how you can paint and base a Moria Goblin in under 20 minutes. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.